Hi, in this video we'll look into how to detect MFA enablement gaps in Azure when you have a set of valid credentials. It's often there are some Azure endpoints that are excluded from MFA or certain types of devices or user agents. And if you're able to gain access to a non-prem environment itself, it's even more common to see exclusions for certain users or all users. It's also worth noting that exclusions can be made based on specific accounts, for example, contactors. Therefore, if you're able to compromise another account, it's worth trying the tools I'm going to show you again for another account to see if that account has any MFA exclusions set for it, because one account might have one set of exclusions or no exclusions at all, or another account has different set of conditional access policies applied to it in Azure. Alright, so now let's look at the tools and how they can be used to detect MFA gaps. Here I'm just using Phone Clouds, which is OS from Phone Labs, specifically built to test cloud environments. So, but you can use any OS, it doesn't really matter. Just has all the tools, so it's easier to showcase. The first one is kind of an older partial script that can be used. It'll test less endpoints than the next tool I'll show you, but still reliable, test multiple agents and common services. So here's the GitHub page, I'll link it below. You can just clone it, I already have it here, so we just need to open a PowerShell window, make it smaller, and here I have all the PowerShell module, readme, and we just have to import it first. You have the command. And next we just here's the basic usage. Invoke MFA-Sweep and it's supply password. We're just running it against a test tenant from Home Lab, so it's not a real production environment. And these are just test credentials. So here we have user Albanitis, her password, and you need to specify the recon to test all the endpoints for MFA, and it's gonna try multiple user agents by default. So let's hit enter. It's gonna ask you, so one of the downsides of this tool, it doesn't actually check the authentication before running it, so you have to be like, you have to know that the password is correct. So then you hit yes. Yes, I know that can lock out accounts, but I know the password is correct, so you can go ahead. So you just click yes. It's gonna try different endpoints. There's some minor errors, but it's fine. And here we get the results. So we can see that Microsoft Graph API, Microsoft Service Management API do not require MFA, but M365 does. And Exchange. So yeah, we got some basic services and a report, what requires MFA and what doesn't. So yeah, that's basically it. You can interact with Graph and Microsoft Service Management API without MFA. You can use like Azure Apply or Microsoft Graph module to log in. And that's basically MFA-Sweep. Very simple, doesn't have much functionality. Just you can go also for GitHub. There are some extra things so you can test specific endpoints if you'd like to, but there's not much to it. It's pretty old tool, but yeah, as I said, it's still reliable. Next tool we're gonna look into is FindMeAccess.py, which is a newer tool. It has more functionality and tests more endpoints. And this seems to be the go-to tool nowadays. You can go through the GitHub. I'll link it below in the description as well to familiarize yourself with different functionality. But yeah, in general, as I said, test more endpoints. Here's like all the resources it's gonna run against. So you can see it's much more. You got Azure Graph, you got database, you got Office, you got Outlook, OneNote, you got Skype, got Yammer. We can also supply the custom agent to, so for example, if the vendors have build detection based on the agents this tool uses, we can supply our custom one. And if their conditional access policy goes, it can allow us to bypass MFA under certain conditions, but we won't go into that. Here's dash user agent flag. So yeah, let's look at some basics. So I'll just have to clone the repo. I'll let you have it in here. Open it. So FindMeAccess.py. Here's the basic usage. So I have to specify audit to test all the endpoints, username, password, and it's also worth specifying a client ID. There are different client IDs. You can list them all here. And yes, let's run it, and it's just basic test. And we can see success or not authorized. And we get a nice chart. You can see all the endpoints are tested. So yeah, we can see Azure Graph does not require MFA. So let's try to log in using this user. Just copy it from my notes here. I'll build it at megabigtech.com. And the password. Didn't copy it right for the first time. So yeah, as we can see, there's no MFA, and we can just log into Azure and look at the resources this user might have. So like all the resources looks like this user has either all or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Also, as I mentioned before, it's gonna test authentication first, so make sure it doesn't lock out the account. So it's gonna test the authentication, and that's gonna test all the endpoints. But MFA-Sweep doesn't do that. Right now it only uses one agent, but you can specify that it uses different agents with --UA_all. Or you can supply your custom user agent, again, user_agent flag. And it still works. One thing to mention is about this client ID not authorized for their resource. So is it because certain apps expect certain client IDs, or our user doesn't have permissions? For example, Azure Key Vault, if our user doesn't have specific permissions to access Azure Key Vault, it's not gonna work because our user is not authorized to access that resource. But certain apps such as Yammer expect a certain client ID. So for example, if our user even has access, but client ID is not the one that Yammer expects, it's gonna fail. So for example, I think right now we're using Yammer client ID, yeah, 85. Oops. Oh wait. Yeah, so now it's 85, but if we specify a different one, we're gonna see that it will fail. So Visual Studio, for example. Paste. Oh, maybe it supports Visual Studio. There was one I used before. 1.8. Let's try this one. So yeah, here I used, which one is it? 1.8. Oh, it's Microsoft Docs. So Here, as you can see, when I'm using Microsoft Docs client ID, Yammer fails because it expects certain client IDs specifically. But if I go back to Yammer client ID, it's gonna work. So just something worth playing around with and trying different client IDs or doing some research. So for example, if you're looking to test a specific endpoint, you can find what client IDs it supports. So that's how you can look for MFA gaps within an organization. And it can be useful for both pen testers and defenders to test it out to make sure you don't have any gaps in the environment. And thank you for watching. Leave comments, subscribe to not miss out on new content, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.